Lawmakers in New Jersey consider legislation that would ban school textbooks, ban them, that have not been approved by radical homosexual and transgender activists. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the one and only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. As you can see, I've got my Freedom Tumbler in front of me, and you should too. Look, here's what we're doing. We have the Patriot Club. It's the Pat Riot Club, named after one of my students who read the word patriot actually as Pat Riot. To honor the genius of the American school kid, we've created the Pat Riot Club. And because we know there are some obsessed people out there, if you send us your tax-deductible $99 donation, not only will we give you a tumbler, but we will give you a tumbler that either Katie and I have actually drank from, and we will sign it. So you could theoretically have our DNA. Tell me that's not a deal breaker. All you have to do is go to patriotclub.us, that's patriotclub.us, to make a one-time tax-deductible donation, and we will ship your tumbler, DNA or not, right to you. All right, Katie joins us now with a look at the health of our republic.
Have you invited everyone to your pet turkey's funeral yet for November 26th? Better get on it, or there won't be enough pet turkeys to go around. You may have to make it a pet pumpkin memorial service instead. Now, what the hell am I actually talking about? Well, let me explain. As promised, I am back for part 2 of Turkey Tyranny 2020. Now, if you didn't see part 1, hit the pause button and go do that now. Okay, you're back. Good. In part 1, we discussed the tyrannical nature of the governors and mayors from the East Coast through the Appalachians. Now we are heading west, getting over the Mississippi River and through the Rockies until we land on the West Coast, which I hope just sort of falls off into oblivion. Ah, a girl can dream.
Dreams do come true.
But first, we have to start in the Midwest. We're starting in the Lincoln state of Illinois. Chicago specifically, where Mayor Lori Lightfoot had a tweet storm to shame her constituents. I'm issuing a stay-at-home advisory asking all Chicagoans to only leave their homes for essential needs, including work and school. As you can see, this includes canceling traditional Thanksgiving celebrations. Also, we have to take COVID seriously. Please, do your part so we can #ProtectChicago. And this. 1 in 18 Chicagoans have active COVID-19 infections as of November 13th. Oh, good, Lori. I too like stats. How about this one? The odds of getting away with murder in Chicago is better than 50%. And wow, look at that graph. The number of shooting victims in Chicago is more than 3,600, and there's still more than 1 month left to this year. So #ProtectChicago. And if you want to head a bit more north and west, head to Minnesota. Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, but where no one needs to call the Butterball hotline when in trouble this Thanksgiving. This year, more people will be calling another hotline. It's the stay-at-home violations hotline, the one Governor Tim Walz created back in April and refused to shut down, claiming it's an educational function. Don't worry, he's imposed tighter restrictions since that time. Then you have Colorado. Governor Jared Polis made this dramatic assertion.
That's not the type of Russian roulette that any Coloradan wants to play. 1 in 20 chance of not making it out if you're hospitalized, which is just another reason to take this very seriously in our lives. Avoid socializing with people outside of our household, wear masks around others, and avoid social interactions.
Really, Colorado? Bringing Russia into this entire thing? Aren't you still claiming that Russian interference is a thing? Or maybe not because you approve of Joe Biden? It is quite rich coming from Colorado, the new land of the tokers. I do wonder if weed doesn't kill the Rona anyway. And now for Thanksgiving, how you deprive the stoners of eating all the carbs is beyond me. Let's hop, skip, and jump over to Washington State. In Washington, if you want to do Thanksgiving, you better get on the protocols.
If we wanted to get together for Thanksgiving, at this point, what would need to happen if we want to gather inside is they would need to quarantine for a week. And then they would also need to get a negative coronavirus test no more than 48 hours before we all get together.
But in reality, Governor Jay Inslee doesn't want you to celebrate or live your life. He's limited church services to 25% capacity throughout Washington state, which includes the land of Seattle, you know, where Chaz Chop once thrived and then immediately dived. Let's head a bit south to the bottom feeders who live in Oregon. They are actually calling it a 2-week statewide freeze, an order that Governor Kate Brown put into place, which will include Thanksgiving. Brown tweeted the freeze, basically showing that everything is shut down. You can't have more than 6 people in your home, and churches are limited to 25 people inside. Maybe hell really has frozen over. And now we head even farther south to the craziest land of all, California. Governor Gavin Newsom is a classic case of all for thee, but none for me, because he told all of California that there are rules for gatherings, especially Thanksgiving. If you live in California, you can't have people from more than 3 households, which may be good so you can exclude the weird uncle. You have to collect all names and contact info so Gestapo can find them. The gathering must be outside, but you can pee inside. Woohoo! That's a positive right there. Then you must limit the event to 2 hours and no singing, chanting, or shouting. Again, it'll help that the weird uncle won't be there. And yet, Newsom just attended a 12-person party with more than 3 households, by the way, for a lobbyist's birthday. Because who needs to follow the layperson rules? With a politician, it's all about the Benjamins.
I make it rain. I make it rain on them homes. I make it rain. I make it rain on them roads. I make it rain.
It's the same attitude from his former aunt by marriage, Nancy Wicked Witch of the West Pelosi. You see, the elites in ice cream must be treated the same. They must remain cold, rich, and intolerant to the average person. That's why they can have a new member of Congress, din-dins, spending how much in taxpayer money and claim it's perfectly acceptable. As Nancy said, it's very spaced. And there is enhanced ventilation, and the Capitol physician signed off. And we are Satan's spawn. And we can do whatever we want. The image does look like how I imagine Hell's Grand Foyer to look. I'm also sure ice cream was on the list to be served at this event, but clearly only the expensive varieties.
Where are we, and who are these people?
Are you crying into a giant tub of ice cream right now? I don't blame you. If you aren't depressed enough about this state of affairs, just know that Christmas is canceled too, because at the federal level, they are doing the same, and in some instances, worse. Remember Dr. Anthony Fauci, the epidemiologist who flip-flops more than Anne Heche's sexual preference? He is now upset that Americans are acting as, wait for it, Americans.
The UK is very similar to where we are now in outbreak because each of our countries have that independent spirit, but we don't want to be told what to do. Well, I understand that, but now is the time to do what you're told.
In the words of our former dictators, bugger off. Fauci also said that we will need to mask up and social distance after the vaccine is in full swing. And of course, to be an even bigger Grinch, Fauci sputtered out a no to Christmas gatherings.
Christmas is probably not going to be possible.
Yeah, well.
Good. I was going to get him coal anyway. Environmentalists be damned. We continue to be told to stay home, except for essential reasons. And then the news is plastered with protests or riots, depending on who you ask, and that is celebrated by the left. Please remember that essentially, you are a free person. And essentially, this is still America. I know because I read my Constitution, which is essential. So happy Thanksgiving, be smart, as in use common sense, and don't be afraid to enjoy that turkey, not a sheep, with your loved ones. Until next time, stay healthy, America.
Join now for our weekly talk with Alex Newman, our international correspondent. Alex, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Duke. It's great to be with you.
Well, here we go. Right now, we watch as the slippery slope becomes an avalanche. In New Jersey now, they're about to pass a bill, they're considering passing a bill that would require every public school in the state to only buy textbooks for any subject that have been on an approved list by LGBTQ activists. So, hey, you're a local district in Piscataway and you need math books for your kids in 8th grade, and you can't buy any math textbook that doesn't have considerable approval by radical activists for the LGBTQ movement.
It sounds so ridiculous, Duke, and yet that is exactly what is happening. This piece of legislation is unbelievable. It would order the State Department of Education to maintain a database where all of the textbooks that are approved by the state are contained, and to get on the list of approved textbooks, it has to highlight and positively encourage diversity and inclusivity and all the rest of it. And then as you read a little bit further into the definition of diversity and inclusivity, you see gender identity, sexual orientation, all the rest of it. So even in like a math textbook, you got to have lots of pictures of transgender, drag queen children, all the rest of it to be able to get on this list. Incredible stuff happening. There is a lot of opposition. In fact, I got emails from 3 different grassroots organizations in New Jersey that we've worked with in the past. They all bombarded their senators with emails. And so for now, it looks like the bill has been put on hold. Actually, we put out our article Monday. That was when they were originally supposed to consider it. For now, it's on hold. But as the activists told me after this, they're planning to come back eventually. We cannot let down our guard.
Well, that's it. Whenever the Republicans or conservatives or Christians manage to stall a bill, they haven't killed it. The progressives are perfectly willing to step back, wait 6 months, and put it forward again. Wait for a more advantageous time. Donald Trump is out of office. Joe Biden's in. Department of Education changes from one that is paying close attention to what states are doing to one that wants every progressive measure possible implemented, and you see where we stand. But here's my question. It really does show you the power that the LGBTQ lobby has gotten here, that they can even make these demands. Clearly, at this time and place in the country, the Black Lives Matter crew, right, the race warriors, the race social justice warriors, they have a much bigger platform and a much bigger megaphone. So why not then them? I mean, we're not going to let you use your 4th grade math book until it's gay friendly. We're not going to let you use 4th grade math book until it's also Black Lives Matter friendly. We're not going to let you use your 4th grade math textbook until it's also trans sensitive. We're not going to let you use your 4th grade math textbook until it is got a Latinx base to it as well. If you grant one of these special intersectional left-wing progressive groups, if you grant one of them this boon, don't you, by definition, have to grant it to them all?
Yeah, except, of course, Duke, and you know this just as well as I do, how many pictures of traditional families with the wife in a nice dress and the little daughters with their braids and how many of those families do you think are going to be in these textbooks with a mom and a dad and maybe 4 or 5, 8 kids? I guarantee you the number will be zero, because they're not interested in actual diversity. They're interested in shoving their political and social agenda down people's throats by any means necessary, including using the coercive power of the state, including using our tax money to propagandize our children. That's what they're interested in. They're not really interested in diversity, or maybe they'd include a conservative from time to time, maybe a Christian.
I can see the math problems already. 4 drag queens enter into 3 adult bookstores, right? That's what it's going to have to be. What else can you do? I mean, you're going to have to literally go and have the propaganda from all of these intersectional left-wing radical progressive groups taking up all the oxygen in the math textbook. It is pretty scary when you stop and think about it. So what was the pressure in the minute or so that we have left, Alex? What was the pressure that was brought to bear that you think actually called the groups to pull this?
Well, I know of 3 organizations that we've worked with in the past that were very, very opposed to this. You have Team Protect Your Children, a wonderful organization led by a wonderful woman of God who has rallied Christians and conservatives all across the state to pray and to oppose these types of things. You had the Morris Patriots, a conservative group in northern New Jersey. And then you had the Family Policy Alliance, which also put out a big statement urging people to contact their legislators about this. And I'm sure there was more. Those are just the ones that we happen to know of. But there was a lot of opposition. There were a lot of phone calls being made. But as you mentioned, this is not dead yet. They will be back with this abomination.
Yeah, you can't kill this stuff. It will come back. The undead will live. On the other side of the break, Alex, let's talk more broadly about the implications of this for the country. back again with Alex Newman and continuing our conversation about New Jersey's decision, pending decision that has now been put on hold. The New Jersey legislature was considering not letting school districts purchase any books at all for any subject, unless those books had been approved by LGBTQ activists. Talk about broader trends in the country with this stuff, Alex. I mean, we're getting to the point now where education has nothing to do with subject stuff, school, learning, but it really is nothing more than a chance for all of these special interest groups to get their fingers and their dirty little ideas all over your kids.
That's exactly right, Duke. And, New Jersey is just the tip of the iceberg. This kind of nonsense is happening all over the country. And you can tell how fraudulent it is, right? The monikers, the terminology that they use, diversity and inclusivity, right? Everything's got to be inclusive. That is the mantra. And in fact, this bill specifically states that. So do all the other initiatives that talk about this. And yet, if you stop to think about it for one moment, if you were really truly being inclusive, you would take into consideration the 70% plus of American adults who consider themselves Christian, who pay the taxes to fund all this nonsense. You'd take into account the Jewish community, maybe a couple percent of the United States. You take into account the Muslim community, maybe 1%. And yet all of these groups, with a few fringe exceptions that just ignore the Bible and do whatever they feel like it, would say, wait a minute, why are we encouraging children to normalize the idea that they can chop off their private parts and that they should be normalizing homosexuality? So they're not really being inclusive. In fact, they're being the opposite of inclusive. They are excluding the majority of the population from these textbooks, from these texts, from these bills, and all the rest of it. So even by their own metrics, even by their own standards, they are doing the opposite of what they claim to be doing. And yet they have dumbed down the population to such an extent that a lot of these school board members, a lot of these activists who think they're pushing inclusivity don't even recognize the cognitive dissonance going on here. It truly is a frightening thing, dude.
Well, they're not confused. They know exactly what they're doing. They know that what they mean by inclusion, this is clear, classic Orwellian double speak. When they say inclusion, they mean we're excluding you. All right, that's what they mean. And but this even has graver consequences inside the classroom. We've seen this too across the country. Let's just separate the ideology that they want to put in the textbooks from actual, let's say, math. Right? How many times have we heard over the last couple of years that by definition math is white supremacist? The empirical method, scientific method is white supremacy. Geometry, all of the higher math of Western culture discriminates against non-Western people. We've heard that time and again, and it comes even more specific. If inclusivity is the purpose of math, then by definition, there can't be just one right answer. 2 + 2 = 4 is not inclusive to the kid who thinks it's 5, to the kid who thinks it's 3. And a decade ago, when you and I were fighting this on the Common Core Trail and tried to show moms and dads the early evidence of this, they got it. People got upset about this. And it's all still here. And by definition, if inclusivity is the primary thing that guides you as in a school or an educator or a textbook company, then there is no such thing as truth other than the political slant that is being put upon these books by the progressive left.
Yeah, it truly is a tragedy unfolding right before our eyes. The consequences will be absolutely devastating to the future of our nation. But there is some good news. Duke, we've talked about this in recent months. The population of homeschool families in America has doubled just since this pandemic. I think a big part of it is families are fleeing exactly this kind of idiocy. They don't want their children indoctrinated with these absurdities. And we also have good news in that FreedomProject Academy is right now developing a fantastic math curriculum that will actually teach children math without all the LGBT propaganda. Imagine that. Next, we'll be doing a history curriculum, right? So there are going to be resources. The government school brainwash monopoly has really left a giant opening in the marketplace here for people who are willing and able to offer legitimate educational alternatives. So, I encourage everybody, get out of the indoctrination system. Get your children out of these absurd, ridiculous indoctrination centers and get them into the safe sanctuary of a good homeschool or a FreedomProject Academy or a Christian school somewhere. Find some alternative because the well-being, the future of your children depends on it.
Yeah, and over the last 4 years, the worst of it has been held back by a Trump administration Department of Education. Get ready for the deluge. Remember the King Louis of France who said, after me, après moi le déluge. When I'm gone, it's going to really really hit the fan, things are going to get really worse in public school education.
It is now time for some real education. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, was born in 1892 and died in 1973. He was an English writer, poet, philologist, and academic, best known as the author of the high fantasy works The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. He also created a universe of fascinating characters that inhabit his mythical Middle-earth.
And that's right. So we've only got a short period for our instant classics. So what I like to do is take great big books like The Lord of the Rings and piece it out in little segments over ideally years and years. And what I want to talk to you about today is some of the characters. One of the great characters in The Lord of the Rings is Gwaihir, the Wind Lord, the King of the Eagles. And the Eagles are one of the great Deus Ex Machinas in The Lord of the Rings. Inevitably, when characters find themselves in impossible situations, it is the Eagles who at the last minute come to the rescue, whether it's to pull the hobbits, to pull the dwarves out of burning trees, or to find Frodo and Sam after the ring has been destroyed and all hell is breaking loose. You can always count on the great Eagles and their Lord Gwaihir. And take a look at this picture. This is a nice one. It gives you a sense of the size of the Eagles in comparison to Gandalf the Grey, who has a unique relationship with them. I always thought, some people have made the argument, why is it that it's kind of an interesting point, why notice the ferocity of that King Gwaihir. You can see, how'd you like an eagle the size of a blimp bearing down on you with talons like that? Take a look at the last picture, by the way, where you've got Gandalf thanking the King of the Eagles for his intervention in the affairs of men. But I go back to the argument that, this is one of my favorites. The pictures are enthralling me. I'm getting distracted. There's Gwaihir about to menace some orcs and trolls that he's chasing down. So very formidable creatures. People have often said, and it's kind of an interesting point, that why is it that the Eagles, who have such power, they literally dominate the skies, why is it that they only show up in times of extreme need? If they were fighting all the time with men and elves, how would any of this be a problem? I mean, the Lord of the Rings, the war would have been over in about a week. At the very end of the Lord of the Rings, we see them take down Nazgul, these flocks of eagles led by their king. But Gwaihir, one of the great characters in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, the irony is you almost don't meet him. You really don't formally meet him. We don't have any conversations really much between eagles and men or dwarves or wizards. We'd like to know more about them. What makes the Eagles so interesting as characters, besides their awesome size and their mobility and their ferocity, is the fact that we don't know more about their culture. Tell me it wouldn't be remarkably cool if we had a couple of stories buried somewhere from Tolkien about the life of the Eagles among the Eagles, what it was like living up there under King Gwaihir with in the Eyrie, right? With all the eagles and how Eagle Society worked. Now that's something I would like to see.
All right, before we go, just a quick reminder that the best way to keep up with our various shows here at Freedom Project is to follow us on Parler. So take 10 seconds to follow all of us at Duke Pesta, at Katie, and at Freedom Project. Thank you so kindly. Now, we want to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members, the Pat Riot Club members, who keep us going. Today, we're going to give a shout out to Mike from Pensacola, Florida. Mike, I'm sure you're enjoying the weather down there. Up here in Wisconsin, it's getting cold, but thank you, Mike, for supporting us. And if you're a fan of the show, please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation to support our Patriot Club, and we're going to send you this awesome tumbler, which may or may not have our DNA on it. All you have to do to sign up is visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us. Now we're going to wrap things up with the fun fact of the day. The National Turkey Federation, what an organization, reports that 88% of Americans eat turkey on Thanksgiving. That's 46 million turkeys being eaten. Another 22 million are eaten at Christmas and 19 million on Easter.
And just think, if you donate twice to the Patriot Club and you get one tumbler from each of us, you might be able to commingle our genetic material and to create the ultimate creature, the Duke Katie. 4 foot tall, bald, but sharp as hell. And that's going to do it for the show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, get your DNA, my friends.